I'm Dr. Dave Janda. Welcome back to our combined Dave versus the MSM and Operation Freedom briefing series. I'd like to thank you for joining me today, and I hope you'll take this information and network it to all those you know and love. The theme of today's presentation is going to be on the financial side, the economic side. And in particular, we're going to discuss the rearrangement of the global economic order. Now, the fact that this is occurring is not an accident. It's not a coincidence. It's not from incompetence. It's been baked in the cake, if you will, for years. A number of my guests, Bill Holter, Craig Hemke, God rest his soul, Rob Kirby, Ed Steer, Adriana Reed, and Dave Janda. One of my degrees in college was in economics, the other being in chemistry. But we've all tried to do our level best to present to you information about this rearrangement. And we've done this over a number of years' time, about how things were changing and you needed to take the necessary steps to protect yourself, because if you did not and are not, this rearrangement is going to cause significant turmoil in your life. That's not fear-mongering. It's the truth. And putting one's head in the sand or sitting on the couch and not taking the necessary action steps to protect yourself or your family is going to be very, very difficult down the line for you and living. It's that simple. The good news is by taking steps, and the first step is being educated in what's really going on. Because what they really want to do, one of the statements I've made continually over 14 years is, what we do at Operation Freedom is provide you an off-ramp on this globalist constructed curve that ends in a brick wall with the shattering of your freedom, your future, your life, and your well-being. And that's not an overstatement at all. In fact, on our website, since the existence of the radio show, since October 2010, we have a quote at the bottom of the website by Frank Zappa, the musician and songwriter. And the quote is, quote, "The illusion of freedom will continue as long as it's profitable to continue the illusion. At the point where the illusion becomes too expensive to maintain, think our debt-paid system coming to an end, they will just take down the scenery, they will pull back the curtains, they will move the tables and chairs out of the way, and you will see the brick wall at the back of the theater." End quote. Zappa was on target. And they're removing those curtains and moving the tables. And we're getting a pretty good look already at that brick wall. And that brick wall focuses on the takedown of the financial system. As I've always told you, when they're going to take down the system they're going to take down is the financial system, because it adversely affects hundreds of billions of people around the world. Because that's what they want. You see, the globalist syndicate are psychopaths. And they believe all of us that aren't part of the club, as George Carlin used to say, well, we're all expendable. In fact, in their Agenda 21 supplement, they talk about that 90% plus of all of us are expendable because we're using the resources that were only meant for them. It's only because of their good graces that they haven't pulled the curtains back sooner for us to hit the wall. Kind of like insects hitting the front of a windshield. That's how they see us. So what we have to do is, well, prepare. Take the necessary steps. But the first step is to realize where we are in time. We are here. The takedown. And one of the greatest indicators that we're here and now, and very close to that brick wall, is what's been happening with the precious metals, and in particular with gold. Yeah, silver's appreciated, but gold's had a big run. Gold's telling us something. That something big's afloat. Huge quantities of physical gold and silver have been pouring into our country. Pouring into China. Pouring into Russia. Not a coincidence. Because when it's all said and done, he who holds the gold makes the rules. Why? Because there's no debt, D-E-B-T. There's no counterparty risk associated with physical gold and physical silver. Those stock pieces of paper and bond pieces, they're all debt. It's all debt-based. It's all debt-based. And for those that say, well, yeah, but cryptos aren't, well, wait. Many cryptos are actually traded through stable coins, and stable coins like Tether are actually linked. They say, well, the reason why we're so stable is because we're linked to U.S. treasuries. What are they? Debt. Sad but true. A lot of folks don't want to come to that realization. Ed Dowd, a financial analyst, recently said, the revelations since the new administration took power have confirmed what many of us suspected. That the globalist Democrats, the globalist rhinos, the bureaucrats, and the non-government organization networks have systematically, again, not an accident, coincidence, pilfered the Treasury for decades while setting up retribution for anyone noticing what they were up to. Retribution being in the form of censorship, lawfare, weaponization of government and intel agencies executing psyops. A significant portion of our GDP, gross domestic product, is fraud. And normies, which you're not, but about 99% of the people you do know are, in other words, locked into the bought-off lamestream fake media and completely oblivious to what's really going on. Normies are still clueless how deep the rot goes. Yeah, it's deep. It's really deep. And it's really rotten. Ronnie Stoefferle, an excellent financial analyst, recently wrote an article, and I want to share part of it with you, called The Rearrangement of the Global Economic Order. Now, he starts off about tariffs. Now look, I am not anti-tariff. There is a role for tariffs. And where President Trump was initially going with this, with reciprocal tariffs, made a lot of sense. Excuse me, if a country's going to charge us 10% for U.S. products, then, well, their products coming in would be 10%. But then there was an event on April 2nd, on Liberation Day, where the globalist Wall Street shill, that elf, Howard Lutnick, messed it all up. He presented this, and everything was doing fine. The markets, and I know the markets were closed, but post-market exchanges, the after markets, were doing fine. until Lutnick, that elf, wandered up on stage and handed the president this poster with these outrageous numbers on them that wasn't based on existing tariffs but on trade deficits, which is the complete. It's apples and not even oranges. It's apples and rutabagas. And the market's tanked, and it's been trouble since. And it set a warning sign, a warning shot across the bow, across the world. Wait a minute. They're messing with us just like Biden messed with us in 2022 when we saw if you didn't kind of go along with what Biden and the Bidenistas wanted, well, they were taking, look at Russia. They even have nukes. They took their resource. They took their reserves. If they do that to Russia, what are they going to do to us? Well, they thought with the new sheriff in town, things would kind of calm down on that. Well, wait a minute. Then they came in with this post. And don't think that was an accident. Howard Lutnick is a card-carrying globalist scambag. Scambag. And markets just shook. Still shaking. Not because tariffs are bad, but the way they were presented. Because many of us ahead of time were trying to tell the president and get information to the president, look, this is fine, but educate the public, educate the world, hold some fireside chats. They don't have to be long. About what's going on, about why tariffs are important, what the impact is going to happen to the American public, to the world public, about how this is actually good. That didn't happen because Lutnick would say, don't do that, don't do that, don't do that. Let's just do the poster. And it sent shockwaves. The rollout was, in a word, terrible. The people around President Trump did not serve him well. Or anyone in the world, frankly. And the big globalist shill responsible is this Lutnick, who unfortunately, at least now, is still there. Back to Ronnie Stoefferle. It was a tremor that shook the financial markets in the trading days following Liberation Day, when tariffs were imposed on almost every country in the world. But one of the biggest winners was gold. One reason for gold's strength is its portfolio property as a hedge against economic and political uncertainties of any kind, whether due to armed conflicts, political crises, or trade conflicts. The positive correlation between the gold price in US dollars and the World Uncertainty Index is very evident. In addition, a possible Mar-a-Lago Accord. Now, the Mar-a-Lago, you know where Mar-a-Lago is. And he's referring to, in the 80s, there were two accords, financial accords. The Plaza Accord in 1985 and the Louvre Accord in 1987. And both agreements led to a devaluation of the dollar. Well, many people are surmising that same thing is going to happen. It's going to be called the Mar-a-Lago Accord. And that's a devaluation of the dollar and devaluation of the debt by increasing the value of gold held at the U.S. Treasury. Right now, the value of gold is pinned at $42.22 an ounce. You might say, wait a minute, isn't gold like well over $3,000 an ounce? $3,400, at one point, $3,500. Yeah. So, and this isn't an accounting gimmick. It's actually been done on several occasions in the 70s. But the gold can be revalued. Well, wait a minute. The existing value is at $3,000 an ounce, let's say. Not $42. Well, what happens is then all of a sudden it creates this funny money that can be used to buy back the debt, that can be used for other purposes. And that is what the Mar-a-Lago Accord is about that Ronnie Stofferle is referring to. The role of gold as a reputable and valuable asset is becoming increasingly important. Gold is seen as a serious asset for solving serious economic problems. In any case, gold offers an alternative that has been tried and tested for centuries to close the resulting gap. With Donald Trump's inauguration, uncertainty in international politics, geopolitical dynamics, and the financial markets has increased significantly. It remains to be seen how long this phase will last, especially with the new factor of the U.S. erratic tariff policy. And that's not being critical, it's actually being honest. It has been erratic, right? Oh, well, this week, it's going to be 125% over here. It's going to be, and then we're going to pull back in 90 days, and we're going to, that uncertainty plays into financial turmoil. What is certain is that gold is benefiting from increased uncertainty. It is also certain that gold's role as a neutral asset without counterparty risk, debt associated with it, has been strengthened. What is new is that gold is also increasingly being rediscovered as an economic policy instrument. Gold should also become even more attractive for investors due to the volatility and weakness of the stock and bond markets. And we have seen the financial landscape quake. Just as it quaked under Biden when he stole, and the people around Biden stole, billions of dollars of Russian assets in 2022. That sent a message to all these countries saying, we don't want to deal with these people. Well, when you start jacking around with this poster board that Lucknett was waving around with these ungodly numbers on them based on a formula no one had ever heard of, it brought back what Biden had done, and all these other countries are like, you know what? Well, you know what? Maybe the new sheriff isn't much different than the old sheriff as far as like jacking around. So you know what? We're going to sell dollars. We're going to look for other means of holding our sovereign wealth from our country, gold and silver. Quote the Raven platform, excellent platform, did a financial analysis. Here's what they said. And it plays into what I just told you. As with the seizure of Russian assets during the war in Ukraine in 2022, the macroeconomic landscape has already shifted and cannot be easily reversed. The shock of seizing Russia's reserves by Biden and the people around him prompted countries globally to consider getting out of the US dollar. While recalibrating the global trade picture is a worthwhile goal, which President Trump is doing, there's no denying that the way it was rolled out, that it again served as a clarion call to the rest of the world to look beyond the dollar. It's what the market has shown us over the last several weeks. Gold is skyrocketing. U.S. financial assets are having trouble. The dollar is falling. And there's a lot of volatility, which is not good in the bond market. It feels like we've run out of runway. And the bottom line is Donald Trump tweeted in 2013, and he did it again on Easter Sunday of 2025. The golden rule of negotiating. He who has the gold makes the rules. And might we say silver. Folks, for this rearrangement of the global economic order, do yourself a favor. The single best insurance policy you can have is storable gold and storable silver. We've been telling you. I thank you for joining me today. We are available 24/7 at davejanda.com. Join us. You won't be sorry. Thanks for your time. Dream big and dare to fail. Join us at davejanda.com.